Obusiani como o chani so ha AG politics avenue. Podcast of the trend ya. Emiko is making headlines in DB exomo. Way a breaking news quick one MFB and somo. A member of parliament Emma Equiapim North. Unia maybe a tremu na ono and na a year. Opinion quantity for Emma a year National Lottery Authority. A year Samuel Awuku. Unia Menoka say. EOCO akwa based on a year investigations be a EOCO NLA National Lottery Authority omo etusu se kitashye proye kankan bi EOCO na so ye abra na wote akunya so se opanyin kwanterefo na eno ene ya project ye flyer no e dey ato screen so e dey amount o say the Economic and the Organized Crime Office, EOCO, has reported detained former Director General of the National Lottery Authority, Sammy, Awuku, over alleged corruption and financial irregularities linked to his tenure at the authority. This detention forms part of ongoing investigation into the financial transactions and other dealings at NLA. More details are expected as investigations unfold and are continued. Onia bongo idea ni bi eba ya yansu yasomu na yedi bi exomo. Let's talk say at this point in time yombo imra yansifufru.
There's been a lot of work, and now this man who is at the center of everything, Asante Berko, has been convicted. He's awaiting sentencing, and so this was going to be happening. He's not been sentenced as yet. He's been convicted. We understand by the 10th of November, he would get to know exactly how many years he's going to be spending in prison. But he stands to possibly be slapped by 30 years. 30 years, that's the maximum sentence of a prison term regarding this particular offense that he has committed. But this is a man, a former Goldman Sachs executive, central coordinator in the United States case. They're saying that he arranged for a Turkish energy client, and this we know as AXA, to at least some, that's the company that he was trying to get into Ghana because of the situation that we found ourselves in, and also because of that position that he held at the time. And in fact, Goldman Sachs, at the time, from the records that we have seen, had some 60% ownership of AXA at the time when this man, was working with them, and also thinking about this whole deal of AXA getting into the Ghanaian market right from 2015. $190 million in loans was what was being considered in this particular approach, in this whole transaction. And then the letters of credit was $75 million. That's what we saw as well, based on the publicly available documents. What we do know as well is that eventually Goldman Sachs saw some things that got them a bit uncomfortable, and they pulled out of this deal. Right? And all of these issues that Goldman Sachs flagged, reason why they pull out of the deal, would actually become the main reason for this probe that led to the conviction of this man, Asante Berko. And he has a very interesting history with us as a country. I mean, right from 2015, that's when we heard of him, right? And his involvement in this entire transaction, and what he did, what he used his personal emails to communicate, and upon his own plea also admitted guilt. But this is a brief history of how we know him. Beyond this involvement in the AXA deal, this is a man who in 2020 was appointed the managing director of the Tamari refinery. But guess what? His tenure was short-lived, because by the 13th of April, exactly 3 months after his appointment as the Tamari refinery boss, the United States filed this AXA bribery case against him. And so he had to resign the next day. As top boss, and President Akufo-Addo accepted his resignation. So it was just a 3 month period. So you hear sometimes reference is made to him being the former tour boss. This is this tenure, 3 months. And it was essentially as a result of this same case that has landed him this conviction and the imprisonment or the sentencing on the 10th of November. So this is how the path has been. But there are some dates that I want you to keep notice of as we go on, because it tells a story and specifically gives us a path that this case has traveled. And this morning, we're going to be asking a number of questions as to exactly how the investigation should be. And the NPP also, and others, and not just them, talking about the confidence in the process. We'll get into it. And the United States, very typical of them, used expressions to, as it were, describe certain persons. Ghanaian official 1, Ghanaian official 2. This is not the first time we're seeing this. See, because in previous instances where they've had to investigate international transactions involving Ghana, they have used such terminology. And we asked why. Some persons in the United States that I sought some explanation from sometime within the week to understand whether, one, the persons they describe as Ghanaian official 1, Ghanaian official 2, do they know the real identities of these people? The 5 people who traveled to Turkey, and which has now been confirmed at least by the former power minister's own statement from his lawyers, that there's a technical team that traveled to Turkey. And they said it's a routine travel. They had to go and do this. But in here, as we'll find later, these persons were paid some, or given some $5,000 each, amounting to $25,000 to do some shopping and other things. Is that so established? Is that also routine? And what form should this investigation take to get that confidence that the outcome of the investigations by our side would be trusted by all? Okay, so those are the issues we're going to be looking at. But this is it. Take note of these dates. December 2014 is when the former power minister, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, was appointed as power minister. One of the many charges that the president, John Dramani Mahama, then gave to him was to quickly find solution to the crisis that we were faced with, the Dumsok crisis. And it's as a result of that this EPA, and for those of you who've had the opportunity to read the transcripts of the court regarding this particular case, the emergency power agreement idea was born because we were in an emergency situation, if you look at it, and what had to be done to address it. That's when, in early 2015, this story began at the height of Ghana's power crisis. Government urgently needed additional electricity. Turkish company AXA Energy was pursuing an emergency power project of up to 370 megawatts. And at the same time, the man I just mentioned earlier, Asante Kweku Berko, was then an executive director at a major U.S. investment bank, was working on financing for the transaction. From the records, his bank stood to earn at about $11.3 million in fees if the deal succeeded. From December 2014, when Turkish company representatives, that's the AXA representatives, began meeting senior Ghanaian officials, through to, let's look at that, January 2015, the United States case says a meeting in Istanbul brought together Berko, that's Asante Kweku Berko, the company's representatives, and senior Ghanaian officials, and some other persons as well. So even before any major money could move, the first stage was about access, and which had to be established. Then in April 2015, based on the documents that were made available, an invoice of some $500,000 was issued. 5 days later, an intermediary wrote that he intended to give $250,000 of that said $500,000 to one Ghana official 1. And I'm going to show you some of the persons mentioned in this as we go on. Ghana official 1. Then, on 20th April, another email carried a simple instruction that pay or Ghana official 1. That was done. Let's look at April 2015. Same period, around the 24th of April, at about we understand 5 Ghanaian officials on this date, 24th April 2015, based on the publicly available document, 24th April 2015, 5 Ghanaian officials traveled to Turkey to inspect the equipment AXA proposed to use. Their flight was paid, their hotel bills were paid, and the prosecutors in this case are alleging that each official received $5,000 in cash, $25,000 in total. So take note of this. Fast forward to May 2015, the senior Ghanaian officials signed the power agreement. That same day, a second invoice, this time for $1.5 million, was issued. So take note of the coincidence. The same day that this power agreement was signed, same day, according to the prosecutors, some $1.5 million was issued, was alleged to have been paid. Major payments appear around this particular approval milestone. Fast forward to July 2015, this matter went to Parliament and it was approved. In fact, the prosecutors mentioned Parliament's committee in this particular issue and exactly what role they played in the process. Because as we do know, this deal had to go through a process from the Ministry of Power through Parliament, GRIDCO, PURC. They all played specific roles in how all of this played out. And that's why you see them mentioned in this deal. We'll get into it. Fast forward, this is what has now been the end of the case, as in his conviction. Now, the persons who have been mentioned in this particular deal is first the power minister, and not because he has received any monies, but some references made to the period that his tenure, when he was in office as minister. And let me put it on record that his lawyers have also written indicating that, 1, he never met this as Berko, and 2, that he did not take any money from him, even though within this period and that issue, he was the power minister. So that is also one that we have to put on record. If we are asking questions, the question, whose report indeed, and who has to be invited, who has to answer questions. These are the major issues at play this morning. And these, based on the documents as we have publicly available, these are the monies that were said to have been paid to the persons and institutions mentioned in this report. These are, for now, the allegations as we have it. Although the U.S. have done and finished their part of this case, it is left to us to also then conclude on what we intend to do. These are parts of the transcripts. You know, the Attorney General has indicated that they are going to look into this. NPP says, no, stay away. EOCO, OSP have indicated they are going to look into this matter. I extracted this part of the transcript to read to you because it gives us an idea of how the path ahead of us will look. This is the personal email account of Berko, who is at the center of this. He says, and I quote, "Are you suggesting that we split cost incurred?" This one, he was having a conversation with a person who has been described as a consultant in this whole deal. "I don't understand your acceptances and rejections otherwise. PURC have so far received 120,000 CDs. $120,000. 100,000 from you and 20,000 from Asante. Each inspector that visited Turkey was given $5,000 on top of their flight and accommodation. Total expenditure was just over $45,000. The MOP girls and this is another one we found, the Ministry of Power Girls. We understand they were crucial to this deal, that these girls or women or, you know, was it just a terminology to represent a particular group of people? What exactly was the duty of the MOP girls? We understand that they were made promises of $30,000 in total. That's $10,000 each. So that means that there were three girls involved in this. For them to be able to get the letters of credit, they received 20. As of this time that this email was being sent, this was sometime in 2015. These girls, MOP girls, Ministry of Power girls, had received $20,000 so far out of the 30. And this email goes on to say that these ladies are most vital to our communication and information acquisition. So, and this tells you now their duty in all of this. They were to get critical, vital information for these persons who were brokering the deal from the power ministry. So that when the power minister is having meetings, what are they saying? What's their thinking? You know, what are their considerations? According to the prosecutors, and this is not, this is the face of the document as you see it. Based on this email, they say Parliament was all paid by Asante. He actually added another 10,000 on his last visit, as he had promised this to the guys. The whole 30,000 requested is due him. I know he paid more than that, approximately 46,000. So if you've listened to Governor Tyree Hammond, who was then the ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee around the same period that this deal was being considered, because the Parliament's committee was mentioned in here. It says they are not cheap. They won't take $46,000. They are worth more than that. But then again, questions need to be asked. These are allegations that are captured in here. Apart from that, they talk about the power team. We're very receptive that they started agreeing payments with them, and the payments were staggered and settled, as we have seen. There are a number of questions being asked right now as to exactly where should the investigative bodies be looking beyond these individuals that have been mentioned. Because these MOP girls that I mentioned to you, the power girls, they have identities which the United States knows. Because the reason why they will not mention their names is because they haven't had their day in court as yet. And so if our authorities request, the understanding we get is that they will give them that information. So it's not just the claim of Asante Berko. It's something beyond that. That is why they're able to establish guilt and convict him. The next person, this man was a deputy power minister at the time, but he has publicly indicated that the entire process was led by his boss, right? So then there is one, Francis W.K. Jatta. He was described in the transcript as the technical advisor to the Minister of Power at the time in 2015. Now, contemporary parliamentary records, as we have checked from other emergency power transactions, confirm that he actually worked closely with the power minister at the time and was directly involved in technical power negotiations. Francis W.K. Jatta is mentioned in there as well. These are issues that we're going to be getting into this morning here on The Key Point. There are some persons who were actually consistent about this deal. And let me just put it on record. Right from 2015 till date, the footprints and investments of AXA as a company has grown exponentially. The last time we checked, yesterday, been running through tons of documents, clearly indicates how much this company has.
We and some of the team course channel so mami and also Jim Breda, so why in the Dumbi Media?